Welcome to Gnarly Metal After Hours. I'm Kelly Thomas, and this is a new show that I've started doing here on gnarly101.com. It's an extension of Gnarly Metal. It's a live rock and talk show that's on the air one Saturday a month. Now, the show features conversations with announcers, musicians, and fans about radio, rock, and records from the 80s. My special guest today is the one and only Big Len. He's the host of Gnarly Grooves, the very best R&B of the 80s. His show's on air from 3 to 5 p.m. Mountain Time every Sunday on gnarly101.com. And you know, Len, I have to tell you, you are the first person that I've friended on social media who I haven't previously met in person. So this is our first face-to-face meeting. Yep. And I want to say thanks for stopping by today.
Oh, it was my pleasure. It was cool to get the invite, just being able to look at it as something to take me out of my comfort zone a little bit. But whatever's here for Gnarly Gang, it's for me. So I'm down. It doesn't matter.
Well, that's exactly the way I feel about it. My idea behind this show, like I was telling you earlier, was to have something be just like conversation.
Sure.
So it's like a group of people sitting around and having a conversation. So a less formal kind of thing. I didn't want it necessarily to be serious like an interview thing because that's out of my comfort zone as well.
You do that a lot anyway.
Yeah,
so
exactly. I have to say, I remember the very first time I heard your show, Gnarly Grooves, and I thought to myself, damn, he's good.
Whoa.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, man.
Well, there's no doubt you're a veteran radio announcer. How did you get your start in radio? Where did it begin?
Oh, boy. Shout out to the lovely people in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. I happened to be couch surfing, and I heard that I was listening to a sports talk show, and I heard the guys kind of going back and forth, and I found myself disagreeing with a lot of the stuff that they were saying. And right after that, there was a commercial for the Ohio Center for Broadcasting, Denver campus, basically a broadcasting school. And my first thought was, one, I know I can be a heck of a lot better than these guys. Number two, how much is this again? But from there, it was just a word go. I went in with pure intentions on taking over the entire sports world and did that, had fun, didn't really make a lot, but I always say if you could have gotten paid in fun, I'd have been a millionaire. Did that, took a break, and now I came back with the option of doing music. So kind of started all in 2007.
Tell me a little bit about your involvement with sports. Paul had mentioned it briefly. Did you have your own show where you were interviewing guests, or were you just kind of recapping sports highlights?
It ended up evolving into that. It started at KCSF, which is 1300. When I got there, it was Sports Animal 1300. It started with Tony D. Tony D had a show called the Tony D Radio Show, and he always jokingly called his guests and his fans the Dog Pound. I was one of the top guys. It just kind of evolved from there. Had a great relationship with Tony. And I always kind of fancied myself as a sports guy and been involved in a lot of it and just had natural opinions about it. So when Tony went on vacation, I think it was like 2007, 2008, he went on vacation for Christmas and he said, "Hey, Len, have you ever thought about doing your own show?" Heck no. I was already a producer at KVOR, so they already moved the mic away from me, so I was just doing the boards. I blurted out, heck no. My mind was like, dude, go. Just go. And so Christmas Day, I debuted on the Tony D Radio Show. Nice. Came back, ended up coming back doing a New Year's Eve show for him. And then it just kind of evolved from there. Ended up doing my own show in 2009 called Off the Chain, a tribute to Tony D's Dog Pound. Did that for a year. Had an absolute blast. Got a chance to go on with other stations, other guests, interviewed some great people, and just absolutely had fun. Again, I'd have been a billionaire if I was paid in fun. It was great.
And I completely agree with you. My reason for getting into radio was for the music.
Yeah.
And I know that sports is something that has been important to you outside of your broadcasting career. Do you want to talk a little bit about your involvement with sports?
Sure. Aside of, well, let's put it this way. The broadcasting thing came late. That was about 2007. I had been a football coach since about 18 years old. I played Pop Warner in Pittsburgh, and then and I'm just going to be honest here. I was so disgusted with our high school football team that I said, I'm not getting hurt for these guys. There's no way. So I ended up going back to the youth football fields, and I've been coaching ever since. Great involvement with with the kids and the parents, and more importantly the kids, just to see their development and being able to keep in touch with them. And I've done it all from 5-year-olds with the classic helmet being 2 sizes too big and they're running downfield. It's all a treat. To high schoolers to where we went to play for state titles. It was an absolute blast the entire way. It was fun.
I'm glad you've had the opportunity to do that, because when I, in the past, have told people, and presently, that I work in radio, they kind of have the same response that you did, talking about how fun it is. DJ Lady V was here last month as one of my guests.
Yeah.
And she talked about her deep passion for music. Do you feel like you have a deep passion for music?
I believe so. I wouldn't know if I would call it a passion rather than just something that's just been with you the entire life. We can write our own stories in life with a musical soundtrack. You remember certain events, you remember certain ways of feeling when a song comes on or things of that nature. So, you know what, I think V had it right. There's a definite passion for it. And there's a passion for maintaining certain things within music. We're kind of snobbish in that way. We generally will say all music is good music, but we have our certain section where we go, yeah, this is it. This one, not so much. It's appreciated, but I'm going to stick with where I am. So yeah, there's a passion, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, and actually that's my next question. You know, my passion for music is clearly in rock, hard rock, and heavy metal. But people will be surprised to know that I do like different genres of music, including a lot of what we play here on gnarly101.com. So other than R&B, are there other genres of music that you like or enjoyed listening to?
You know, this is sort of a surprise for a lot of people that have seen me do the R&B show. But yeah, I get down with a lot of rock, a lot of the pop stuff that we play here. Again, takes you back to certain events, takes you back to certain memories. I can pretty much get down with anything as long as it's considered actually good music. A lot of jazz, a lot of funk, semi-classically trained. So we can talk Beethoven if we need to, or we can talk Chopin if we need to, but everything has its own step. Everything has its own journey, but kind of like we talked about earlier before the show, it is intertwined and it's all good. You just got to find your flow with it. It's great.
Yeah. What kind of music were you listening to in high school?
Oh man. Grew up listening to WAMO. It was 105.9 when I grew up in Pittsburgh, primarily R&B. It was a big R&B household. We had the Marvin Gaye records. We had the Aretha records. Grew up huge Isley Brothers fan, and a lot of the stuff were just R&B. When I got to high school, that's when we started to branch out a little bit. I was a so-called band geek. I was in the marching band. And I got exposed to a lot of rock, a lot of the other stuff that you really wouldn't hear of before. So I'd go home and be talking to my friends, and I would mention Anthrax, and they would look at me funny. And I'm like, "You guys never heard of Anthrax?" Meanwhile, my band geek mind, I'm talking with the trumpet player who's a diehard metalhead, and all these other guys, and I'm like, okay, these guys are okay, and it's you got exposed to a lot when you get to high school. But I grew up pretty much R&B, hip hop, stuff like that.
Yeah. You know, there's one thing to be said for the school systems here in our country, the public school system, and this is just a personal opinion of mine, but I've seen most public schools, not all of them, have some sort of a music program that they make available to kids starting at a very young age. There is an aspect of me that so appreciates it because I came up with that exposure, and that was where I had the opportunity to learn how to play a musical instrument. So I started playing the flute when I was in 4th grade and continued through my sophomore year in college. At that point, I was like, nope, I can't do this anymore. There are too many other commitments in my life. But the idea that public education gave the chance for me to pick up an instrument and learn and to have that exposure to music, I think it's one of the best assets of our education system here in this country.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And it's a huge correlation with music and math. You have no idea how much it helps you out with anything, just from counting to statistics to everything else. I'm still surprised I survived trigonometry. But I blame my band director, Nick Kumis, and all the rest of the guys that helped me get to that point. And it's a stress relief. right?
Yeah.
I mean, depending on where you are, at fourth, fifth period, right in between everything, you get that stress relief right before lunch, and then you got to go to math class again.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, today is Saturday. It is September 21st. And you know where I'm going
I
with
already
this.
know where you're going. I already know.
Now, I can't help but think of a song by Earth, Wind, and Fire called September. And I'm wondering, as somebody who's familiar with R&B music, do you think the band had the intention of having any kind of special meaning or significance to the 21st of September, or was it just kind of a random date they threw out there because it sounded good in the song?
I think it was one of those ones where they just randomly threw it out,
Yeah.
but it's in those moments when you realize years later, hey, this means something. It's kind of like Temptations. Papa was a Rolling Stone.
Yes.
It was the 3rd of September. And so September 3rd, I'm walking around in my job and I have that blasted in my headphones. And it was simply because of that. It's they made something that was iconic. And I don't think they realized it until later on.
That's exactly right. Well, speaking of Earth, Wind, and Fire, we're going to get to some music right now, and we'll start it off with Earth, Wind, and Fire. You're listening to Gnarly Metal After Hours with my friend Big Len, and I'm Kelly Thomas. We'll be back in just a few. During the break, we got to a conversation about Joan Jett. Len, you were telling me about growing up and listening to Joan Jett and to Pat Benatar and your first exposure to them.
Oh man! I'll tell you. Like I said, growing up on the west side of Pittsburgh, predominantly black neighborhood, a lot of R&B, a lot of funk. So it wasn't just hearing Joan Jett, but it was actually looking at her and actually seeing her and seeing Pat Benatar. We grew up with it as kids, and we were like, they are literally the picture of rebellion. Because I got to tell you, in our household, mom was law.
Yes.
And you didn't go against the law. And these two were the pictures of rebellion. And it was kind of like, wow, they can get away with saying things that we can't. And we just thought of it as 1000% badass and just dead sex. It was something about Joan Jett. I'm like, I can't put my finger on what it is. But if she told me, you 5 minutes in a room, it's I'm going to die trying. It's
I'll
one of
be
those.
right there.
Right. Yeah. Hey, if I don't, I know my wife would be disappointed. I know that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, just growing up and seeing those two, it was just like, man.
Yeah, like I was telling you, and longtime listeners to Gnarly Metal will know because I've mentioned this on several occasions. My husband and I saw Joan Jett in concert, and exactly what you were saying. She is straight up rock and roll. There's no frilly, fluffy, girly stuff, and that was so compelling to me. But her ability to play her instrument and to play it well,
Yeah.
that is kind of one of the things that I still have respect for when I look at musicians. And today I think we've moved into a place where people who have a skill set, and I'm probably going to offend some people saying this, but people who have a skill set and have the ability to work with a certain type of computer software can create music. But I'm still, I don't know, I'm still old school about, I want to see you play your instrument. I want to see you actually sing the vocals. I want to know that your talent is there in support of the awesome music that you're creating.
It's a certain appreciation for live music.
Yeah.
Granted, you can go anywhere and hear the best DJs, and shout out to all the best DJs out there and the content creators and everybody else out there.
Exactly.
But like you said, it's something about seeing you play the instrument and playing it well, and just having that certain appreciation for that live sound. But yeah, jealous. You saw Joan Jett, and it's like the song. Do you want to touch me there?
I know.
Okay, right down
Right
to
now.
it.
Yes, I do.
Like, okay, all right, let's, hey,
You know? Len, what's the first concert you ever saw? The first band you ever saw in concert?
Ooh, man. First concert that I remember, New Edition, Bobby Brown, I'll Be Sure.
Wow.
Civic Arena in Pittsburgh. New Edition blew the roof off the joint. Bobby Brown had his little segment to where he's on stage and he's grinding on a girl singing Tenderoni. And I guess cops came on the stage. I don't know if it was staged or not, but he had that whole thing where he was about to get arrested or whatever. I'll Be Sure was the opening act, and he was 45 minutes late, and I'm forever going to be mad at him.
Wow.
because of that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you mentioned those three performers, three bands, three individuals, all in one concert.
Oh, yeah.
It was just that sometimes I feel like that happened when we were younger,
Yeah.
that bands came together instead of just being a headliner and having an opening act.
Yeah.
So you had a chance to see them all at one time, which is pretty remarkable. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what was the first album that you ever owned?
Ooh. I can't count my mom's albums because
See, I do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, because mom still has Aretha's debut. Mom still has a bunch of other ones. She has Marvin Gaye Live at the Palladium. She has Isley Brothers Go for Your Guns. The first one that I had that I could truly call mine was Thriller.
Nice. Yes.
I take part ownership with my mom and my dad for some of the other ones. One of the ones from back in the day, Yarborough and Peoples came out with one and had a jam on there called "Don't Stop the Music." That'll forever be with me. But my first ever one that I could say this is mine, it was Thriller.
Yeah. The first record I had was shared with my mom and dad. So there were 45s, Elvis Presley, Fats Domino, that kind of stuff. But my first 33 was Blondie, Parallel Lines. And so, and actually you have Blondie's Rapture on the list coming up for you. So just a real quick aside, for those of you who've listened to the show before, each time I bring a guest on, I ask them to put together a playlist of music. So the music that you're hearing today is Compliments of Len. And I think you did a fantastic job lining up some great songs for us.
Well, thank you. I was on the way over and I still had a bunch going on in my head. And I'm going, nope. I sent the list. I was working with it a couple of days ago with my wife, and she was naming off a bunch of bands. And with her, I always said, if we ever had a 90s show or a 90s station, she'd be top dog. Because she was naming Nirvana, she was naming all the others, and I'm like, I got to come down to the 80s. I remember all of these guys. Your taste is impeccable, but I got to come down. I want to stick within the genre. But she approved of the list that I sent you, and hey, one more notch in the belt for me, so it's great.
Yeah, there you go. Right, exactly. You won't be sleeping on the couch tonight.
No, not at all.
I'm teasing. Sorry about that. That's a running joke in our house.
It is all good.
Especially in the winter time. Again, an aside, and I'm off down a rabbit trail here, but my husband likes the temperature in the house cold enough that we can see our breath. And I tell him he's got to take it up a couple notches or he'll be sleeping on the sofa by himself because
I call my wife the furnace.
Oh.
So I get exactly what you're saying. And I'm like, babe, can we chill out with the AC for a little bit? Not in that sense of chill out, but hey, can we turn this up to like 70?
Right.
She'll keep it at 68 and it'll just keep firing off. And I'm like, okay, babe, I'm cold. We got to do something. I'm cold.
Exactly. Well, we were talking about concerts. We're talking about albums. What is a concert that you haven't seen that you would like to see sometime in the near future, if possible? Or is there a group you haven't seen who you will never have the opportunity to see that perhaps you regret not seeing?
I will never have the opportunity to see Earth, Wind, and Fire in its full band. I will never have the opportunity to see the Commodores.
Yeah.
Which is big. Now I'm not talking about night shift Commodores. I'm talking about when Lionel Richie was there and he was writing. That would have been one that I would have loved to see because again, it's the full band element. It's the guys playing the instruments. Something about the horn section in every band.
Yes.
It's just, if you got a horn section, you got some players. You got some ballers there. I would have loved to seen Parliament Funkadelic. I mean,
yes.
Do we need to say anything else?
No.
But I've had a chance to see a few in my lifetime, and it's been good. But those are three that I can think right off the bat. It's like, you know what? Had I been able to go to there, that would have been cool. Let's see that, and then trying to think on the rock end. Really can't think of anything off the top of my head. I mean, maybe Poison, maybe Van Halen in its original state.
Agreed.
I would put Ozzy up there. I'd put Ozzy and
Yes.
Black Sabbath up there.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, this is Dream Sequence. These are ones that I will probably never ever get a chance. But those are the ones that hit me on the top of my head.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Gnarly Grooves. So, your show is on gnarly101.com every Sunday from 3 to 5 p.m. We were talking about this on the break, but you actually started your show with Paul when Gnarly was 101.3 FM. And you've carried that over here to us doing online, gnarly101.com. What inspired you? What inspiration do you take when you put together playlists? Do you put together things you really want to hear, or do you have certain songs that you feel just kind of flow right in from one to the next?
It's a combination of both. When it started, it was just a matter of play the ones that you remember, play the ones that you liked, play the ones with that have a memory attached to it. If we get 2 or 3 other people that kind of dig what you're doing, you can expand. You can expand from there. What I try to never do is play stuff exclusively for me. I take requests. I take stuff from everybody else that we can do. So I try to stay on that. But usually, as you probably heard within the show, it's a flow. It's something. It's just a feeling. It's like I call it. It's a groove. You just you stay in that groove and you keep going. It's fun because people don't get to see the chaos behind putting the actual show together and me dropping about 10 pounds in sweat. But you get to hear the finished product, and as long as the finished product is kind of like my bowling career, a smidge above mediocre, then I'm okay.
And it's consistently good, too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I try.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about old school radio.
It was something that I did in addition to Gnarly Grooves, and I wouldn't be able to have done that or do Gnarly Grooves as a whole, without Paul, the guy that runs the shop here. So if he's here, I want him to know I love him and I appreciate him for anything and everything that he's done. That still, to this day, was the wildest phone call I've ever taken from him in my life when he called and said, "Hey, can you do R&B?" And I'm like, I think so. And it just spawned from there. Oldschoolradio.com was a passion project that kind of developed from Gnarly Grooves because a lot of times during the flagship days of 101.3, I'd be in the 80s, but then I'd find a 70s song that kind of fit. And that would branch off, and then that would branch off into a segment of the show. And then from there, I'd have fans say, "Hey, you got anything from the 90s? Because, I got some younger members of the younger generation. The 90s is their old school. Can you do that?" So oldschoolradio.com was a combination of, hey, here's everything from the 70s, 80s too, but got some stuff in the 70s that was nice. Got some stuff in the 90s that was nice too. So I wanted to bring it all together, put it all in one deal. And my first thought on it was, Paul's going to kill me if I don't tell him about this, because it's almost going to be direct competition. So I made a phone call before I even started anything, and Paul was like, "Go for it, dude. It's going to be massive. It's going to be great." And so that went on for a couple of years. It's currently on hiatus, but people need to know that it's never gone. It's not gone. If the stars align, it will be back. Yeah, it's I mean, talk about a fun time. I had an absolute blast doing that.
Yeah. Well, again, I will say for those of you who haven't had the opportunity to hear the show, whether it be Gnarly Grooves or Old School Radio, I do recommend you check it out. You will not be disappointed. Going to head back into some music real quickly, and we're going to start off this segment with a song by the group Blondie. What inspired you to pick this song?
Oh my! It's officially known as the first rap song.
Yes, of course.
Because when she starts off with Fab Five Freddy, and sure enough, Fab Five Freddy was in the video when she did it. For me, it was a perfect combination of the rock element that we that we kind of wanted to dip into. It was sort of taboo in our neighborhood. We wanted to listen to it, but we didn't want to let mom and dad find out. We wanted to do that, and then the rap element, and then I forgot the name of the guitarist, but the guitar solo, like right towards the end, mind blowing. I was like, yes, this combines everything.
Yeah.
Not to mention Debbie Harry, she was hot too.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Well, you're listening to Gnarly Metal After Hours. My guest today is Big Len from Gnarly Grooves, which you can hear every Sunday, 3 to 5 p.m. Mountain Time, that is, right here on gnarly101.com. We've got a little bit of music on the way, and we'll get back with you shortly after this. But right now, it's Blondie and Rapture. You're listening to Gnarly Metal After Hours in the gnarly101.com studio. My guest has been Big Len from Gnarly Grooves.
Hey.
Yes, your show. Tell us about your show, when people can listen to it, where people can find it.
Gnarly Grooves, the very best of 80s R&B, right here on gnarly101.com, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time every Sunday. Try my best not to miss. So we do what we can. And you can pretty much go anywhere you want, but there's nothing better than doing it right here in what I call the mothership.
Exactly. Right. And people can listen to the show online. You can download the free apps at gnarly101.com. What about social media? Where can people find you on social media?
Facebook page, Gnarly Grooves. I have the blue record on there. Twitter, it's called X now.
Sure.
It hasn't changed. It's still my full name, Big Len Williams. Big is not my first name. Just go.
It just happens to be that you're tall.
It's Instagram, Old School Radio 1. That's OLSKOOL Radio 1. And that's how you guys can find me. I know one of these days I will finish it out and I'll make everything uniform, but that may be when I'm like 80. I don't know.
Right. That's like when you have that infamous and elusive free time, right? Yeah.
What's that?
You've been listening to Gnarly Metal After Hours, a live monthly show that features conversation with radio announcers like Len, musicians and fans about radio, rock, and records from the 80s. A replay of this show is going to be posted to the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is Gnarly Metal After Hours. I hope to get it up within a week or so. But you can also catch the replay of previous shows, Gnarly Metal After Hours shows, on YouTube's Gnarly Metal After Hours channel. And check out Gnarly Metal social media pages, Facebook and Instagram at Gnarly Metal. I'm Kelly Thomas, and I want to say very, very special thanks to my friend Len for joining me this afternoon.
Pleasure. It's a pleasure. Absolutely. And if you need to do it again, I'll do it again. It's okay. Yeah,
actually, that'd be great. I'd love to have you come on and join me at another time.
Absolutely.
Great. All right. All of you, hope you have a great weekend. Peace, and keep it right here on gnarly101.com for the very best of the 80s.